Hey, welcome to Buckeye Grove Rapid Reaction. That's probably not going to be the name of this podcast, but it's our first one here. I'm Kevin Noon. I'll be joined here in a second with recruiting analyst Mark Givler. This is a different podcast than Unscripted Ohio, which runs with Kyle Lamb on Mondays and Fridays. Just an experiment that we're trying right now. And we're here with some big news right now as Ohio State has just landed another commitment. Kourt Williams out of the West Coast, out of California. I'm not going to waste any time talking about him. I'm going to throw it right over to Mark. Mark, talk about this big news.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is this is their ninth commitment currently in the top 100. So they have almost 10% of the top 100 prospects in the country committed here in Ryan Day's first full class. So another big piece here. But I think for Kourt specifically, this was a very important commitment because they have really been tasked, Greg Madison and really Jeff Hafley probably even more so since he's more involved in recruiting in the secondary. They've really been tasked with trying to find a guy who can fit this bullet position that's been talked about so much on the board and in the Ohio State media space. But they really had to get one of these guys. I think they've got a couple guys on the roster that, could maybe fit this bill the way they want it fit. But they wanted to go out and find a guy specifically for this position, and Kourt Williams is probably the most tailor-made guy in the country for this position. The bullet position is a safety linebacker hybrid. It's probably more strong safety than linebacker, but there are some linebacker responsibilities in terms of being able to play in the box against the run. And Williams, that's exactly what he does. You pop in his tape, he can play in the box, kind of a weak side linebacker. He can cover tight ends. He can run around and tackle in space. He's a big hitter, an intimidating physical presence that can run. So it checks something off the list. I mean, I think you could maybe see a guy like Cameron Martinez end up there, but this was a guy they targeted specifically for this position. He was their top target for this role, and they've got him, and he comes out of a great program out there in St. John Bosco.
Right, the same school that produced Wyatt Davis. And when you watch Kourt Williams, is there any player, Ohio State related or maybe just even beyond that his game kind of reminds you of? I know it's really not fair comparing a junior in high school to to somebody who had many years of football experience at a higher level.
Yeah, I think the one guy, and I don't know. I mean, this guy, the guy I'm about to mention. I hope he excites people. I don't know that he'll maybe draw the excitement that everyone's hoping for. I think everyone wants me to throw out like an NFL Hall of Famer or something. But they had a guy that was I think probably was born maybe 10 years too early, and that if he had been born 10 years later, would have been a much more ideal fit for today's brand of football and defense. And he reminds me a lot of C. Grant, who was recruited by John Cooper, but was started at like corner, eventually moved to like a will linebacker, and it was just one of those athletic guys that 15, 20 years ago it was kind of hard sometimes to find a position for those guys. Now you've got spread offenses everywhere, and these guys are very valuable. I mean, and you look at a guy like a Cam Chancellor, who is kind of who this position is based off of. And, those guys have become commodities even in the NFL. But that's who Kourt Williams reminds me of. They're about the same size, very similar. C. Grant was a guy who could cover, but was also extremely physical as maybe an undersized will linebacker. And so I think they're getting that type of player, but in an era of football that is much more suited for that type of player, if that makes sense.
They're sitting at 22 players right now, and the class has got to be coming close to an end at this point. I mean, what's left for them to be able to go out there and get?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's looks like there was some confusion there with compliance on the numbers. I think they're going to get this thing over 25. I think they're going to get this, and this counts Jake Siebert, who will not be on scholarship his first year, but I think this gets to 26, 27. So they do have a few spots left. Really right now, there are a few different priorities. First and foremost, and this I think will be settled here in about a week and a half, but locking down this running back position. This has been supposedly a multi-back class from day one. It's been a bit of a roller coaster in terms of running hot and cold with guys at various times, and guys kind of falling off the board, and Jalen Knighton kind of not coming out of nowhere necessarily, but kind of picking up steam here the last couple months. So they got to lock down the running back position, and they've got Jalen Knighton announcing on the 30th, Bijan Robinson announcing August 2nd. Great chance they get both of those guys. That would obviously wrap up that. So from there, it's really about getting one more defensive lineman and maybe two. It would be, someone could weasel their way in there if he's deemed a special prospect. But definitely at least one more defensive lineman. They definitely want a third corner. Obviously, Elias Ricks is out there. That's the elephant in the room. I'm not convinced they're going to wait to see what he does necessarily. He would be a guy they would take any, he would be a take, if he wants to do a Terrell Pryor and go a month after signing day or something, they'll take him then too. But I don't know that they're going to count that situation necessarily in the numbers. I think they're going to want to know for sure they're going to get a third corner, and then kind of see where things go with Ricks. Unless, of course, obviously Ricks gives them an indication that they don't need to do that. So that's another big area there is the corner. So, and another corner, one more defensive lineman anyway, get the running back situation sorted out. And, that's really about it except for this second quarterback situation, which I think they're going to try and take one. It's just a matter of finding one. You got to find a good one. You got to find one that makes sense. It's going to be a hard thing to do. This CJ Stroud has some momentum right now, but he's going to be a number one guy for a lot of other schools, so that's going to be kind of interesting for him.
It all sounds like it's coming to a head. Thanks for joining us, Mark. I'm sure we'll be in touch here shortly with a couple of big announcements coming for Ohio State here in the coming week or so. So, real exciting times for Ohio State recruiting right now. We're going to wrap things up. Not a long podcast. Just wanted to get some rapid reaction to the big Kourt Williams news. We're looking forward to breaking it all down here on Buckeye Grove. So, join us once again here for rapid reaction as more news comes.